The auction in the shadows. The stench of desperation clung to the air like an invisible fog as Ryan Stone swirled the amber liquid in his glass. His gaze sharp despite the feigned disinterest in his half-lidded eyes swept across the grimy marketplace. Dargan's underground auction was exactly what one would expect at the edge of civilized space, a cesspool where the galaxy's most desperate sellers met its most depraved buyers. Smoke and the acrid scent of chemicals coiled above the crowd like malevolent spirits. Merchants barked in languages Ryan didn't care to learn, offering everything from weaponized micro-drones to enslaved creatures plucked from forgotten corners of the galaxy. He hadn't planned to stop here. His crew was waiting back at the Nomad, no doubt already restless and grumbling about their next job. This detour had been little more than a whim, an excuse to burn time and drown out the ghosts that haunted his memories. He had no intention of buying anything, but as the auctioneer's booming voice cut through the din, something in the cadence made Ryan's fingers pause against his glass. Final lot of the day, the auctioneer bellowed. The Grayan's bulbous form waddled onto the stage, his candle wax-like skin glistening under flickering lights. A rare specimen from the Verdante systems, untamed, unbroken, a true exotic for those of refined tastes. The crowd shifted, murmurs of excitement rippling like static. Ryan's eyes narrowed, his disinterest giving way to curiosity. Two guards dragged the girl onto the platform. She wasn't what he expected. Her emerald green skin shimmered faintly, almost as if it held its own light even beneath the harsh overhead beams. Thick silvery hair cascaded down her back, tangled but undeniably striking. The torn sand-colored dress they'd thrown over her slender frame was little more than a rag, yet she wore it with the defiance of a queen stripped of her throne. But it was her eyes that pinned Ryan in place, icy blue, sharp and unyielding. There was no trace of submission there, only a cold, burning challenge. A Verdante female, the Grayon declared with a flourish, his voice dripping with the oily charm of a salesman who believed he controlled the room. Young, strong, and he paused for effect, letting the anticipation build like a tightening noose. Trainable. The crowd chuckled appreciatively. Ryan's jaw tightened. He recognized the kind of laughter that came from men who saw others as playthings, property to be bent until broken. A wealthy Krell merchant slithered forward, his scaled hand reaching toward her face. "Let me inspect the merchandise." Ryan's gut tensed, though he couldn't say why. It happened fast. The girl lunged. Her teeth sank into the Krell's outstretched finger with a sickening crunch. The merchant screamed, his reptilian features contorting as dark blood spurted from the wound. "My finger," he howled. She bit off my finger. Chaos erupted. The crowd surged back as the Krell staggered, clutching his mangled hand. The girl spat the severed digit to the floor, her chest rising and falling in ragged breaths, but her eyes never wavered. The Grayon's face twisted with fury. He backhanded her so hard she hit the stage with a dull thud. Savage, he hissed, spittle flying. He turned to the horrified audience, forcing a smile back onto his melted features. "Apologies, gentlemen. Clearly this one needs further conditioning. Perhaps the predator pits would be a more fitting fate." "Not worth a single credit," someone shouted from the back. "Sell her for meat," another jeered. Ryan stood before he realized what he was doing. "I'll take her." The words cut through the noise like a blade. The room fell silent. The Grayan blinked his three eyes in confusion. "You what?" I said, "I'll take her." Ryan's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. He tossed a credit chip onto the stage. It landed with a satisfying clink. Minimum bid, right? The auctioneer's expression soured. He'd been looking forward to watching her torn apart, that much was clear. "She's defective," the Grayan spat. "Market law allows." "Market law is clear," Ryan interrupted, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You put her up for auction. I made a bid. No one outbid me. She's mine." A ripple of tension passed through the crowd. The The Grayan's jaw worked, but he knew the truth. Market law was sacred even here. To break it would mean no one would trust him again. Fine, he hissed, venom in his tone. Take the savage. Don't come crying when she guts you in your sleep. Ryan stepped forward, his boots echoing against the stage. The guards yanked the girl to her feet. Her hair fell like a curtain over her face, but when she looked up, their eyes met for the first time. There was no gratitude in her expression, only cold calculation. You might as well kill me now, she said, her voice melodic despite the venom in her words. I'll never be your painted pet. Ryan smirked faintly. All I want is someone to scrub my ship. It's filthy, and my crew's too lazy to clean properly. She blinked clearly, not expecting that response. Fair warning, Ryan added. Your attitude won't sit well with them. Not at first. I doubt it will ever sit well, she muttered, but some of the tension in her shoulders seemed to ease. Ryan turned to the auctioneer. We done here. The Grayan thrust a small device at him. Control chip. Collar commands shock track kill. Use them liberally. Ryan pocketed the chip without so much as a glance and gestured for her to follow. As they walked into the suffocating night air of Dargan's streets, Ryan felt the weight of countless eyes tracking them. You have a name? He asked over his shoulder. A pause. Then softly, Kiona. Ryan allowed himself the faintest of smiles. Kiona. Ryan Stone, captain of the Nomad. She snorted quietly. A human. Last I checked. He stopped at a vendor, tossing a few credits for a cloak and handing it to her. Put this on. Dargan's not known for its hospitality, especially to your kind. She hesitated, then draped it over her shoulders, her icy blue eyes flashing with something unreadable. Why did you buy me? Ryan considered the question as they stepped into the shadows. The truth was murkier than he liked. Let's just say I've got a soft spot for lost causes. A dangerous bargain. The streets of Dargan were no kinder than the auction house. Stale air choked the narrow alleys, carrying the scent of oil sweat and desperation. Neon signs flickered like dying stars above crumbling vendor stalls, their garish glow reflecting off puddles of indeterminate liquid. Ryan kept his pace steady, one hand resting near his holster as he guided Kiona through the winding marketplace. She followed in silence, the borrowed cloak drawn tight around her shoulders. Yet even with her head lowered, she moved with a predatory grace that belied the raggedness of her appearance. Her steps were light measured, as though she were memorizing escape routes with every glance. You can stop plotting your grand escape, Ryan said casually, his tone lacking the bite his words carried. I didn't buy you to chain you. Kiona's icy blue eyes flicked up, her expression unreadable. Then why, she asked, voice soft but laced with steel. Why pay for me if not to own me? Ryan hesitated. He wasn't sure he liked the answer forming in his mind. Maybe I'm just a sentimental fool, he said finally, his lips curling into a wry smile. Or maybe I enjoy saving troublemakers with a penchant for biting off Krell fingers. The corner of her mouth twitched, but the expression vanished as quickly as it came. You've made a mistake, she said flatly. They'll come for me. For you. You should have let them throw me to the predator pits. It would have been easier. Ryan chuckled, the sound low and humorless. Easier isn't my style. They reached the docking bay gates. Rusted metal doors loomed ahead, guarded by two lanky humanoids whose species Ryan didn't recognize. One raised a hand. Passcode and cargo declaration, the guard droned, voice as mechanical as the implants in his jaw. Ryan stepped forward, holding up a small data chip. Nomad docking bay 32. No cargo transfer. The guard scanned it and waved them through, not sparing Kiona a glance. Still, she kept the cloak tight, her knuckles pale from the force of her grip. As they entered the dimly lit corridor leading to the Nomad, Ryan spoke again, softer this time. You keep glaring like that, and my crew's gonna think you're plotting to kill me. Maybe I am, she replied coolly. Fair warning, Ryan said, his smirk returning. You won't get far. They're loyal enough to shoot first and ask questions later. Loyal to you. Loyal to credits, Ryan admitted. Me second. It's a hierarchy I've learned to live with. Kiona's sharp laugh startled him. Sounds like a crew that would sell you out for a bounty. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't have to. The Nomad loomed ahead, a patchwork ship that somehow still managed to look sleek in the dim light of the docking bay. Its mismatched hull plating bore the scars of countless skirmishes and salvage jobs, but beneath the surface, Ryan knew every system hummed with deadly efficiency. As they approached the boarding ramp, Kiona slowed her steps deliberate. Is this the part where you hand me over to your crew like a trophy? Ryan glanced back, his gaze sharp. This is the part where you learn I don't keep trophies. She stared at him for a long moment before ascending the ramp. Inside the ship was alive with movement. Mara, his human first officer with the jagged scar across her cheek, leaned against a bulkhead, arms crossed. Cord, the massive Braxian engineer, loomed nearby, his four eyes narrowing as they landed on Kiona. "The hell is this?" Captain Mara demanded. "You bought a Verdante. Have you lost your mind?" Cleaning specialist Ryan said lightly, ignoring the tension crackling through the air. "The Nomad's filthy." Mara's hand hovered near her blaster. "Their kind is nothing but trouble. Border traders still tell stories about Verdante raids." "Stand down, Mara." Ryan ordered, his tone calm but edged with authority. "My ship. My decision." Cord snorted, the sound like grinding stone. "Your decision might get us all killed. Or worse, broke." Before Ryan could respond, a holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room. Dex's voice, smooth and slightly distorted, filled the bay. "Captain, we've got a situation. The Krell merchant Varak Thu has issued a bounty. 50,000 credits for the Verdante. Alive if possible, dead if not." The crew exchanged glances. Even Mara's scowl faltered, and another 50 decks continued for the human scum who interfered with his purchase. Ryan clenched his jaw. "How long until bounty hunters show up?" "Already on their way. I give it an hour, maybe less." Cord stepped forward. "Simple solution. We hand her over, split the bounty, and move on." "Not happening," Ryan said flatly. "Why the hell not?" Mara snapped. "She's not crew. She's not even a paying passenger." Ryan's eyes burned with quiet fury as he swept the room with his gaze. "Because I said so. Anyone who doesn't like it can take their share of our last job and find another ship." Silence fell like a hammer. Finally, Terran, one of the Mavonian twins, spoke up. "The captain's never steered us wrong before. If he sees something in her, maybe we should trust his judgment." Ryan gave a curt nod. "Thank you, Terran. Decks prep for immediate departure. Cord secure the cargo. Mara run perimeter checks. I want us off this rock in 20 minutes." The crew dispersed reluctantly, tension still hanging thick in the air. Ryan turned to Kiona, who had been silent throughout the exchange. Her expression was unreadable, but her jaw was set, her chin raised. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yeah," Ryan replied, gesturing for her to follow. "I did. Let's get you quarters and a change of clothes before my crew decides mutiny's a fun idea." The chase in the alleyways. The Nomad's corridors were silent but charged like the calm before a storm. Kiona walked 2 paces behind Ryan, her cloak drawn tight, the faint glow of her skin barely concealed beneath the fabric. Each step she took was measured, purposeful. Her icy blue eyes darted from bulkhead to bulkhead, memorizing exits and escape routes. She wasn't planning to stay. Ryan's boots thudded against the deck plating. His stride relaxed, but his senses sharp. He didn't trust her any more than she trusted him. The moment she thought she had a chance, she'd bolt. He'd seen it in her eyes back at the auction, the same look of a cornered animal that would rather die fighting than submit. When they reached the airlock, Ryan tapped the control panel, lowering the ramp. "Stay close," he said without looking back. Dargan streets aren't friendly at the best of times. To you, they're lethal. I've survived worse cesspools than this. Kiona murmured, her tone soft but cutting. "I don't doubt it," Ryan replied evenly. "But surviving alone and surviving with half the galaxy hunting you are 2 different games." The streets outside were a labyrinth of shadows and neon. Vendors shouted over one another, peddling wares of questionable legality. Scavengers watched from darkened corners, their eyes glittering like predators waiting for weakness. Ryan moved with confidence, hand brushing the grip of his blaster as they threaded through the crowd. For a while, Kiona kept pace, then her steps faltered. Ryan felt it before he saw it, the subtle shift in her energy. "Don't," he began. But she was already gone. One moment she was beside him, the next she was a streak of silver and green darting into a side alley like a phantom. Shit. Ryan broke into a run, weaving through startled aliens as he chased the flash of her cloak. Kiona ran as though her life depended on it. Perhaps it did. Her bare feet barely made a sound on the cracked pavement. The air was heavy with rot and ozone, but she didn't care. Freedom was all that mattered. Ryan's boots pounded behind her. He was faster than she'd expected, his larger frame forcing him to bulldoze through narrow gaps. She slipped through with ease. She vaulted a crate, her cloak snagging on a protruding pipe. She tore it free without slowing. Her lungs burned, but her legs didn't falter. Not yet. The chase led them deeper into Dargon's underbelly. The market's relative order gave way to cramped passages and flickering lights. The walls dripped with moisture and the air grew colder. Ryan caught sight of silver hair disappearing around a corner. "You're making a mistake," he called out. Kiona didn't answer. Then the alley ended. Kiona skidded to a halt, her breath coming in sharp bursts. Dead end. She spun, ready to fight. But Ryan wasn't there. Silence pressed in. The only sound was her own heartbeat pounding like a war drum in her ears. A flicker of movement above made her glance up. Two men crouched on a fire escape, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Hunters. "Well, well," one of them rasped. "Looks like the little Verdante led us right to her." Before Kiona could react, they dropped down, flanking her like wolves. "You're worth a small fortune," the second man sneered. His teeth filed to points. "And we're here to collect." Kiona's muscles tensed. She crouched low, her fingers curling into fists. "Try it," she hissed. A shot rang out. The first hunter dropped without a sound, a smoking hole in his chest. The second spun just in time to see Ryan emerge from the shadows, his blaster-steady eyes cold. "Your mistake," Ryan said, calmly, firing again. The hunter crumpled his weapon, clattering to the ground. Kiona stared as Ryan strode toward her, holstering his blaster. "You were saying something about surviving alone," he asked. Her jaw clenched. "I didn't need your help." "You're welcome," he replied dryly. They stood in tense silence for a moment. The stench of ozone and burnt flesh filled the alley. "Why?" she demanded finally. "Why risk yourself? You could have let them take me and walked away richer for it." Ryan's expression softened, though his voice remained cool. "Because I don't deal in chains, not anymore." A screech echoed above them. Kiona's head snapped up as a winged creature swooped from the rooftops, its talons aimed for her throat. Before she could move, Ryan's blaster was out again. The energy bolt struck the beast mid-dive, sending it tumbling to the ground with a wet thud. "Roof scavengers," he muttered. "They hunt in packs." More screeches sounded in the distance. Kiona's eyes darted to Ryan. He nodded once. "Come on, unless you want to die here." This time she followed without protest. As they moved quickly through the back alleys, Kiona kept her gaze fixed ahead, but her voice was quieter now. "You're shooting," she said. "It's precise." "Former Alliance military," Ryan replied. "Old habits. You fought in the border wars." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Among others. Humans have a reputation for being effective in combat," she said thoughtfully. "Or violent." Ryan's lips twitched. "Depends on who's telling the story." Kiona glanced at him. "Sometimes violence is the only language oppressors understand." Ryan looked at her, then truly looked. There was a weight in her tone that couldn't be faked. "You speak from experience." Her eyes hardened, but she didn't reply. When they emerged onto a broader thoroughfare, the Nomad was visible in the distance, docked and waiting. Ryan kept his pace steady, his mind turning over the events of the past hour. This woman was going to be trouble, But as he caught the flicker of determination in her ice-blue eyes, he found he didn't regret his decision. Not yet anyway. Fractures among the Nomad's crew. The air inside the Nomad was thick with tension the moment Ryan and Kiona stepped aboard. The metallic clang of their boots against the deck echoed like a warning bell through the corridors. Ryan's hand rested lightly near his blaster, not because he expected trouble from Kiona, at least not immediately, but because he knew his crew. They weren't going to like this. Mara was waiting for him just beyond the cargo bay, her lean frame stiff with suppressed anger. A scar sliced across her right cheek, twisting the corner of her mouth into a permanent sneer. Her hand hovered near her holstered blaster as her sharp brown eyes flicked from Ryan to the cloaked figure behind him. "You're out of your damn mind," Mara said without preamble. "Verdante, do you have any idea what kind of heat you've brought onto us?" Before Ryan could answer, Cord stepped out of the shadows. The Braxian towered over them, all four eyes blinking in sequence as his heavy arms crossed over his barrel chest. His deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Captain, you've just painted a target on our backs. Krell merchants don't forget, and they don't forgive. That bounty is going to bring every scavenger and cutthroat within 3 sectors straight to us." Ryan's expression didn't shift. "She stays," he said simply, his tone calm but carrying the weight of command. Mara's hand twitched near her blaster. "Why?" "She's not crew. She's not even a paying passenger. And her kind," Ryan interrupted, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl, "is under my protection now. My ship, my rule." The tension in the cargo bay thickened like storm clouds. Behind Mara, the rest of the crew began to gather, drawn by the raised voices. Tehran and Vine, the Mavonian twins, stood shoulder to shoulder, their mirrored expressions wary but curious. Their tall, lean forms seemed relaxed, but Ryan knew better than to mistake their stillness for passivity. At the back of the group, Dex's holographic avatar flickered to life, projected from the ceiling panel. The Tauran AI's single cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Kiona. Captain Dex said, voice smooth and slightly distorted, "You might want to see this." A new holographic screen bloomed beside him, displaying the face of Varak Thu. The Krell merchant's reptilian features were twisted with rage, his scaled hand now missing a finger bandaged in crimson cloth. 50,000 credits, Thu hissed, his voice booming through the cargo bay, "for the return of the Verdante savage who maimed me. Alive if possible, dead if necessary." The crew shifted uneasily. "Another 50,000 Thu," continued, "for the human who dared interfere in my transaction." The hologram vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Cord growled, stepping forward. "Simple solution, hand her over, split the bounty, and we're all richer." "Hell, Captain, that's 100,000 credits. Enough to keep us flying for a year." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Not happening." Mara's fingers finally brushed her blaster. "You're asking us to risk everything for a stranger." "Why?" Ryan didn't flinch. "Because I said so. That's all the reason you need. Anyone who doesn't like it can take their share of the last job and find another ship." The threat lingered in the air like the scent of ozone after a lightning strike. Vine spoke up for the first time, his voice soft but carrying across the bay. "The captain's never steered us wrong before. Maybe he sees something we don't." Tehran nodded in agreement, though his mismatched eyes remained on Kiona, studying her with a scientist's curiosity. Mara's jaw tightened, but she stepped back, her hand dropping from her weapon. "Your funeral, Captain," she muttered. "Don't expect me to clean up the mess when she guts you in your sleep." Cord snorted, turning away with a muttered curse in his native tongue. Ryan exhaled quietly, his posture relaxing only slightly. He turned to Dex's flickering avatar. "Prep for immediate departure. I want us off this rock before every bounty hunter in the sector shows up." Dex's eye whirred. "Understood, Captain. Jump calculations in progress." Cord Ryan continued secure the cargo and checked the engines. Mara, run perimeter checks. Taryn and Vine, make sure our stealth systems are operational. We leave in 20. The crew dispersed through their murmurs lingered like echoes in the metal walls. Ryan turned to Kiona, who had remained silent throughout the entire exchange. Her chin was raised, her shoulders squared in defiance, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Relief, maybe, or surprise. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. Ryan met her gaze evenly. Yeah, he replied. I did. He gestured down the corridor. Come on. You need quarters and a change of clothes. And I need my crew to stop imagining ways to kill you. As they walked deeper into the ship, Kiona's voice floated to him softer this time. You're either a fool or more dangerous than you let on. Ryan allowed himself the faintest of smiles. Why not both? Secrets and escapes. The Nomad vibrated faintly. As the engines roared to life, a deep thrum echoing through the metal skeleton of the ship. Ryan stood on the bridge, his arms folded across his chest, eyes fixed on the display as the docking clamps released with a heavy clang. The glow of Dargan's polluted atmosphere filled the viewport, but beyond it, space stretched dark and infinite, a void, both welcoming and treacherous. Engines are hot, Cord growled over the comms. We're good for burn. Then get us the hell out of here, Ryan ordered. The Nomad lifted smoothly, artificial gravity shifting beneath their feet as the ship angled toward orbit. Kiona lingered near the back of the bridge, silent and watchful. The hood of her cloak was down now, her silver hair catching the dim lighting, and Ryan could feel her eyes on him even as he focused on the controls. Mara sat at tactical fingers, drumming an impatient rhythm against the console. They're coming, Dex announced. The AI's holographic eye flickered as streams of data scrolled across the display. 2 pursuit craft just launched from the Dargan spaceport, heavily armed. Estimated interception in 3 minutes. Ryan cursed under his breath. Cord, give me everything the engines have. Already pushing redline, Cord replied. This crate's still heavy from that last salvage run. Then dump the scrap if you have to, Ryan said. We're not dying over a few crates of scrap metal. Mara threw a pointed glance at Kiona. Or over a Verdante. Ryan didn't look at her, but his voice sharpened. Don't test me, Mara. Kiona, for her part, said nothing. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable, but Ryan noticed her gaze flicking to the monitor, scanning engine readouts, weapon systems, and trajectory plots. You're losing acceleration, she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. Mara's head snapped toward her. Stay out of this. She's right, Ryan interrupted. Go on. Kiona stepped closer to the console. Your stabilizers are misaligned. The vibrations in the deck plating, it's subtle, but I can feel it. Verdante proprioception. Ryan's brow furrowed. You're saying you can sense mechanical imbalances through touch? Yes. And if you let me into engineering, I can correct it. Cord's voice growled over the comms. You're trusting our lives to a slave we picked up an hour ago. Former slave, Ryan corrected. And yes, I am. A beat of silence followed. Fine, Cord grumbled. But if she screws up, I'm spacing her myself. Ryan shot Kiona a glance. Go. And don't make me regret this. Minutes ticked by, like hours, as the Nomad fled toward open space. The pursuit craft were closing their weapon systems, locking on. Shields up, Mara barked. Brace for impact. The first volley slammed into them, rattling the ship. Then, just as suddenly, the vibrations underfoot changed. The ship steadied the engine's pitch, deepening into a smooth hum. Whatever she did, it's working, Dex reported. Engine efficiency just jumped by 15%. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Plot a course for the Helios Nebula. We'll lose them in the radiation belt. The Nomad banked hard, engines screaming as it plunged toward the swirling red and gold clouds of the nebula. You're insane, Mara muttered. Probably, Ryan agreed. But it's worked so far. The pursuers hesitated at the nebula's edge, wary of the radiation storms. The Nomad didn't. Inside, the ship rocked violently as plasma currents surged around them. Dex's voice cut in. Radiation levels spiking. Hull integrity holding, but we can't stay long. Just long enough to lose them, Ryan said. Kiona returned to the bridge, her hands streaked with engine grease, her face glistening with sweat. Not bad for a cleaning specialist, Ryan murmured. A faint smile ghosted across her lips. I never said cleaning was my only skill, Captain. Their eyes locked for a moment, the unspoken current between them stronger than before. Even Mara noticed her brow arching slightly. Jump in, 3, 2, 1 decks counted down. The stars stretched into lines and the Nomad vanished into hyperspace, leaving their pursuers far behind. The Helios Nebula unfurled across the viewport like a celestial tapestry, its crimson and gold clouds illuminated by dying stars. It was breathtaking and deadly, the perfect hiding place. Radiation levels are high, Dex warned. Life support systems strained. We have 48 hours max before we start losing critical systems. That'll be long enough for the initial hunt to die down, Ryan said. Minimal power configuration, essential systems only. Kiona stood beside him, now her gaze fixed on the nebula's hypnotic dance. It's beautiful, she murmured. On Verdante, we have stories about places like this. Cosmic gardens where the spirits of stars go to be reborn. Ryan studied her profile, noting the way the nebulous light played across her emerald skin, making it shimmer with hidden depths. Poetic for a people known for their mechanical aptitude. She smirked faintly. We contain multitudes, Captain, just like humans. Their eyes met, and for a moment the weight of the galaxy seemed to fade, replaced by the quiet intensity between them. Ryan cleared his throat, forcing himself to look away. I should check the engine room. That radiation might be affecting the stabilizers you fixed. I'll come with you, Kiona offered. I can feel if something's off. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. Let's go. As they walked side by side through the dimly lit corridors of the Nomad, Ryan couldn't shake the thought gnawing at the edge of his mind. He'd brought trouble aboard his ship. And yet, as he glanced at the fierce determination in Kiona's eyes, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Not yet. Schemes at Helio Station. Helio Station was a sprawling city in the void, its modules sprawling like a mechanical reef anchored to nothing but ambition and greed. Ships of every shape and size floated around it like insects to a carcass, their docking bays lit with crimson beacons. Ryan watched from the Nomad's viewport as they drifted closer, his jaw tight. The station was alive with traffic, alive with danger. It was the last place bounty hunters would expect them to go. And yet that was why it was perfect. Helio Station Dex announced from the console, his holographic eye flickering. Trade summit in progress. Heavy security presence, but plenty of civilian traffic to blend into. Perfect cover, Mara muttered. She stood at Ryan's side, arms folded, her scarred face impassive. But it's still a risk. Everything's a risk, Ryan replied evenly. But we need supplies and parts. The nebula's radiation cooked half our secondary systems. Kiona stood behind them, her emerald skin hidden beneath a hooded cloak. The pigment Mara had provided masked her bioluminescence for now, but it wouldn't hold forever. Ryan noticed the way her hands fidgeted at the edge of the cloak, her eyes darting to the viewport. Stay close to me, he told her quietly. Helio's no safer than Dargan. Maybe worse. She didn't look at him. Why bring me at all? Won't I just draw attention? You're an engineer, Ryan said. We'll need your eye on the parts we're getting. And besides, his lips curved slightly. I don't trust Mara to pick out stabilizers that won't blow us up mid-jump. Charming Mara muttered dryly. The Nomad docked with a soft thud. The hiss of decompressing air filled the corridors as Ryan's crew prepared to disembark. Cortarian Vine, you handle the cargo transfer, Ryan ordered. Dex, keep the ship ready for a quick exit. Mara, Kiona, you're with me. Mara raised an eyebrow. You're sure bringing the Verdante along is wise? Nothing a hooded cloak and some pigment won't fix, Ryan said. Let's move. Helio Station's interior was chaos wrapped in steel. Merchants shouted over each other in a cacophony of alien tongues. The air reeked of ozone and burnt spices. Neon lights blinked overhead, advertising everything from cybernetic enhancements to entertainment services in gaudy flashing scripts. Kiona kept her head down as they walked the cloak's hood, casting her face in shadow. Ryan kept close, his hand never far from his blaster. "This place feels wrong," Kiona murmured under her breath. "That's because it is," Mara said flatly. "Helio's built on lies and contraband. You fit right in." Kiona stiffened but said nothing. They descended 2 levels into the tech district, a maze of stalls and storefronts brimming with spare parts, data crystals, and prototype weapons. "My contact is in there," Mara said, nodding toward a nondescript shop with shuttered windows. "Wait here." Ryan and Kiona stood just outside as Mara disappeared inside. Kiona shifted uneasily, her fingers brushing the edge of her cloak. "You okay?" Ryan asked softly. "This place reminds me of home," she admitted after a long pause. "Before the raids." Ryan wanted to ask more, but footsteps cut him off. 3 figures approached from the far end of the corridor, moving with too much purpose to be ordinary shoppers. Their eyes scanned the crowd like predators hunting prey. "Bounty hunters." Ryan's stomach clenched. "Change of plans," he murmured. "We're taking the long way back." He placed a hand lightly at the small of Kiona's back and steered her into a side passage. "They're following," Kiona whispered. "I know." The passage opened into a quieter residential area, its walls lined with grimy doors and flickering lights. Ryan's mind raced. They needed a diversion, something to make the hunters overlook them. Without warning, he pulled Kiona into a shadowed alcove and pressed her back against the wall. "What are you?" she began, but the rest of her words were smothered as Ryan's lips claimed hers in a fierce, urgent kiss. Kiona stiffened in shock, her fists clenching against his chest. Then slowly, her body softened. Her arms wound around his neck, pulling him closer as her glowing skin hidden beneath Mara's pigment pulsed faintly. The bounty hunters passed by without a second glance, their eyes sliding over the couple locked in their embrace. When they were gone, Ryan pulled back slightly, his breath warm against her lips. "Sorry," he murmured, though his tone said otherwise. Kiona's voice was quiet, almost amused. "Human methods of evasion are surprisingly effective." Ryan smirked. "We have our moments." A sharp crack echoed from the direction they'd come, a blaster discharge. "Time to move," Ryan said. They slipped into the shadows as shouts erupted behind them, chaos blooming like wildfire through the station. Ryan's comm buzzed in his ear. Captain Dex's voice crackled. "We've got a problem. Station security's locking down the docking bays. Varak Thu is here with a small army." Ryan cursed under his breath. Of course Thu had come in person. He glanced at Kiona. "They're not just here for me, are they?" Kiona's face was pale beneath the hood. "They're using a Verdante biosignature scanner," she said softly. "It can detect my energy patterns through any disguise." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then we stop running." Her ice blue eyes widened. "And start fighting." "No." His lips curled into that dangerous half smile she was coming to recognize. "We outsmart them." The Confrontation and Counterattack, the service tunnels of Helio Station stretched ahead like the intestines of some dead mechanical beast, narrow and suffocating. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced with every step Ryan took. Behind him, Kiona moved silently, her cloak wrapped tightly around her slender frame, but he could feel the tension radiating from her like heat from a reactor core. Alarms echoed faintly in the distance, a rhythmic thrum that reminded Ryan of battlefield klaxons from a lifetime ago. "Dex," Ryan murmured into his comm, his voice low. "Captain," the AI replied, its tone edged with static. "You've got movement on the upper levels. Station security is responding to the fire suppression systems I triggered. Chaos factor optimal." "Good. Keep them guessing. Cord, you ready with the Nomad?" Engines primed, docking clamps loose. Cord's gravelly voice answered. "We'll be gone the second you're on board. Hold position at external port E17. "Quiet and fast," Ryan ordered. Kiona's voice broke the tense silence between them. "You're sure this will work?" Ryan glanced over his shoulder, catching the faint glow of her bioluminescence bleeding through the pigment on her skin. Even now, when every step brought them closer to danger, she moved with the predatory elegance of someone born to survive. Plans are like ships, Ryan said. They're perfect until the first hit. Improvisation's what keeps you alive. Improvisation gets people killed, she countered softly. Only the slow ones, Ryan replied with a smirk. The junction to E-17 loomed ahead, a yawning metal corridor with a docking seal at the far end. Ryan slowed his hand, drifting to the grip of his blaster. Something felt off. "Stay here," he whispered to Kiona. But she didn't listen. Varak Thu stepped out of the shadows like a nightmare made flesh. The Krell merchant's reptilian eyes gleamed in the dim light, his scaled face curling into a cruel smile. A strange device pulsed in his clawed hand, a Verdante biosignature scanner. "The human who stole my property," Thu hissed, his voice a guttural growl. "And the savage who owes me a finger." Two Krell bodyguards flanked him, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming like polished bone. Ryan didn't flinch. He stepped forward, placing himself between Kiona and Thu, his voice calm, almost conversational. "She owes you nothing. She's not property. Not anymore." Thu's tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "You humans and your primitive notions of freedom," he sneered. "Always fighting for lost causes." "Not lost," Ryan said, his smirk sharpening into something dangerous. "Just untamed." Thu's scaled finger tightened on the scanner. "Step aside, human, or I'll mount your skull beside hers." Ryan's eyes hardened, his stance shifting subtly. "You know what I've noticed about you, Thu. You're so focused on what's in front of you. You forget to check your back." There was a faint click. Thu stiffened as the cold barrel of a blaster pressed against the back of his head. "Captain's right," Mara whispered in a voice like silk over steel. "That's a dangerous oversight." The Krell's bodyguards spun, raising their weapons only to freeze as Cord emerged from the shadows, his massive frame filling the narrow space. Four cold, unblinking eyes glared at them as his twin rifles powered up with a high-pitched whine. "You move," Cord growled. "You die." On the upper walkway, Terran and Vine appeared, their slim forms eerily in sync, rifles leveled with deadly precision. In an instant, the power dynamic flipped. Ryan took another step forward, his voice low and lethal. "Drop your weapons. Call off your hunters, or this ends here." Thu's eyes darted between Ryan, Mara, and the others, calculating odds and finding none he liked. "You don't understand what you're doing," he hissed. "The bounty on your heads will triple. Every mercenary in this sector will hunt you to extinction." Maybe Ryan set his tone icy, but not today. One of the Krell bodyguards shifted slightly. Cord's rifles hummed louder. "Try me," the Braxian rumbled. The guard froze. "Bind them," Ryan ordered. Mara's smirk was sharp as a blade. "With pleasure, Captain." Cord stepped forward, securing the Krell and his guards with magnetic cuffs. Kiona approached silently, her cloak shifting as she moved. Her ice-blue gaze locked on Thu's, glowing faintly as her emotions simmered beneath the surface. "My technology was meant to save lives, not enslave them," she said softly, her voice cutting like tempered steel. "Remember that when you dream of Empire Krell. Some things aren't meant to be owned." Thu bared his teeth, but said nothing. Ryan touched Kiona's shoulder gently. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, though her fingers trembled faintly. "I never thought I'd face him again." "You didn't just face him," Ryan said. "You stood your ground, reminded him that some spirits can't be broken." Her lips curved in the barest hint of a smile. "I had a good example to follow." Dex's voice crackled in Ryan's earpiece. "Captain Station Security is converging on your position. You've got 3 minutes, maybe less." Ryan nodded grimly. "Mara, get these 3 into a security pod. Jettison them toward the nearest penal colony. Anonymous evidence dropped to the authorities. Let them handle it." "Consider it done," Mara said, already dragging Thu toward the shuttle bay. Ryan turned to his crew. "Move out, back to the Nomad, now." As they made their way through the tunnels, Ryan kept Kiona close at his side, his hand brushing hers as they navigated the narrow corridors. Her presence was a quiet flame in the chaos, a reminder of why he'd risked it all. Thu was out of the picture, but the real fight was only beginning. And as Ryan glanced at Kiona's ice-blue eyes, fierce and unbroken, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He didn't regret saving her. Not yet. Love in the midst of war. The Nomad hummed softly as it drifted in the quiet expanse beyond the Helios Nebula. The ship's lights were dimmed to conserve power, casting long shadows across the corridors. For the first time in hours, there was no sound of alarms, no vibrations from near-miss plasma blasts, just silence. Ryan stood alone on the observation deck, staring at the swirling reds and golds of the nebula outside the viewport. His reflection looked back at him, sharp lines around his mouth from too many hard years. Eyes that carried the weight of 100 choices he couldn't undo. "You should be resting," came a soft voice behind him. Ryan didn't turn, but he didn't need to. "Kiona," he said quietly, "I didn't hear you come in. You were distracted." She stepped beside him, her movements as fluid and quiet as ever. The cloak she'd worn on Helio Station was gone, and the ship's faint glow kissed her emerald skin, making her seem almost unreal. Silver hair tumbled freely over her shoulders, still mussed from their frantic escape. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood together watching the nebula swirl and shift like a living, breathing thing. "It's beautiful," Kiona murmured finally. "On Verdante, we have legends of places like this. Star gardens where the souls of dying suns go to be reborn." Ryan's lips curved faintly, poetic for a people so obsessed with engineering. Her eyes flicked to him, a ghost of a smile on her lips. "We're not so different from humans, Captain. You see the universe in tools and weapons. We see it in machines and harmony. But both of us are just trying to survive it." Ryan let out a quiet breath. "You shouldn't be here." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean? On this ship, in this life, you deserve more than running from bounty hunters and scavengers." "And you?" she countered softly. "Do you deserve it?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "No," he admitted. "But here we are." The silence between them stretched. It wasn't uncomfortable, not exactly, but it was heavy charged. "You risked everything for me today," Kiona said finally. Her voice was low, almost hesitant. Ryan's gaze stayed on the nebula, though he could feel her eyes on him. "Would you have done the same?" he asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "Verdante aren't taught to trust, not after what happened during the raids." Ryan turned to face her, then really seeing her. Not just the fierce, defiant woman who'd bitten off a Krell's finger, but the engineer who carried a brilliance she hadn't asked to be hunted for. "You can trust me," he said softly. "Can I?" Her question wasn't mocking. It was raw, vulnerable in a way that caught Ryan off guard. Before he could answer, the ship gave a slight lurch as it adjusted orbit. Ryan's hand instinctively went to her arm to steady her, and she didn't pull away. "Kiona," he said, his voice rougher now. Her ice-blue eyes met his, and in them, he didn't see anger or suspicion anymore. He saw a flicker of something else, something dangerous and impossible to ignore. "I should walk away," she murmured. "Yeah," Ryan agreed quietly. "You should." Neither of them moved. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was raw, desperate, two people colliding after being pulled too tight for too long. For a heartbeat, Kiona froze. Then her fingers tangled in his jacket, pulling him closer as her lips parted against his. Her bioluminescence flared beneath her skin, faint patterns glowing like starlight under the surface. Ryan broke the kiss first, though his forehead stayed pressed to hers. "You're glowing," he said, his voice hoarse. "Strong emotions do that," she whispered. "Is that bad?" "No." Her fingers brushed his cheek, the touch feather light. "It's Verdante for..." "Yes." They didn't make it to his quarters. The door to the nearest cabin slid shut behind them with a hiss as Ryan pressed her back against the wall. She pulled him down to her with a hunger that left no room for hesitation. Clothes were discarded carelessly, boots kicked away. Her hands traced the scars on his chest as if memorizing every one while his fingers explored the glowing patterns rippling across her emerald skin. "You're dangerous," she murmured against his lips. "So are you," he growled back. Their bodies moved in tandem, a dance of heat and need and something neither of them dared to name yet. When they collapsed together on the narrow bunk, breathless, and spent the glow of Kiona's skin pulsed faintly in the dark, Ryan brushed a strand of silver hair from her face, his thumb tracing the delicate curve of her jaw. "I don't regret it," he said quietly. "Saving me. Letting you in." Kiona's fingers slid over his chest, coming to rest over his heart. "Verdante don't give themselves lightly," she whispered. "When we do, it's forever." "Forever's a long time," Ryan murmured. "Not long enough," she replied and kissed him again. Somewhere deep in the ship, alarms gave a soft chime as Dex monitored incoming transmissions. But here in this small, quiet space, the universe seemed far away. And for the first time in years, Ryan Stone felt at peace, even if he knew it wouldn't last. The final battle. The stillness in the Nomad didn't last. Captain Dex's voice crackled over the calm but laced with urgency. "We've got company. 3 pursuit ships just launched from Helio Station. They're gaining fast." Ryan snapped awake, the glow of Kiona's bioluminescence still fading in his memory like an afterimage. He swung his legs off the bunk and grabbed his jacket, his body already moving with the reflex of a man who had spent years expecting the worst. "How long before they're in firing range?" he asked, striding for the door. 2 minutes, maybe less," Dex replied. "They're Krell-class hunters armed to the teeth." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Battle stations. Cord. Give me everything you've got in the engines. Mara, prep weapons. Kiona." "I'm coming too," she said from behind him, already pulling her silver hair into a tight knot, her expression calm but her ice-blue eyes burning. The bridge was alive with movement when they arrived. Mara barked orders at the weapons console. Cord's gravelly voice growled over the engineering feed, and Terran and Vine moved in eerie Mavonian sync at navigation. "They'll be on top of us in 60 seconds, Mara reported. "You've really pissed them off this time, Stone." Ryan ignored the jab, sliding into the captain's chair. Shields up, weapons ready. Kiona hovered near the auxiliary console, her fingers dancing over the controls as she scanned the ship's vitals. "There's a vibration in the hull," she said suddenly. "Do you hear it?" No. Cord grunted. "But I feel it." "What are you seeing, Verdante?" "Tracking beacons." Her voice was sharp. "They attached them while we were docked at Helio. They're broadcasting our position." Ryan swore under his breath. "Can we get rid of them?" "Not unless you want to take a walk outside and vacuum," Cord replied. "No time for EVA." Kiona's brow furrowed, her glow brightening faintly beneath the pigment that still clung to her skin. "Then I'll reprogram them." Ryan's eyes met hers. "Will it work?" "If I can access their frequency matrix, I can send false coordinates. Make them think we jumped in the opposite direction." "Do it," Ryan ordered. "Captain, incoming fire," Mara shouted. The first volley slammed into the Nomad shields. The ship shuddered violently, lights flickering overhead. "Shields at 70%, Dex reported. "Return fire," Ryan snapped. "Disable their weapons if you can, but keep us alive." Kiona worked fast, her hands flying over the console, her breathing steady despite the chaos. Ryan watched her for a heartbeat, the glow beneath her skin pulsing with every keystroke. "You're glowing again," he murmured. "I know," she said through gritted teeth. "Strong emotions do that. Try not to die before you finish." "That's the plan," she shot back. Another impact rocked the Nomad. Mara cursed under her breath. "Captain, we won't last much longer if they keep pounding us like this." "Cord evasive maneuvers," Ryan ordered. "Doing my best," the Braxian growled. "This crate wasn't built for ballet." Kiona slammed her hand on the console. "Got it. Beacons are transmitting false data now. When we jump, they'll think we're headed for the Maris Rift." Ryan's lips curled into a fierce grin. "Nice work. Dex charged the hyperdrive." "Already at 80%, the AI replied. Just buy me 30 seconds. The Nomad banked sharply, plasma fire streaking past its flanks. One of the pursuing ships broke formation, veering after the false signal. 2 down, 1 to go, Mara said. Hyperdrive, charged decks, announced a heartbeat later. Jump us out of here, Ryan barked. The stars outside stretched into streaks of light as the Nomad leapt into hyperspace. For a moment, silence reigned on the bridge. The only sound was the steady hum of the engines and the collective exhale of a crew that had just cheated death again. Ryan turned to Kiona. She was still at the console, her shoulders rising and falling as she caught her breath. The faint glow beneath her skin had dimmed, but her ice-blue eyes were still bright with adrenaline. "You saved us," he said quietly. She gave a small, tired smile. "Seems to be becoming a habit." Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not sure if I should thank you or yell at you for risking yourself." Kiona tilted her head, her lips quirking faintly. "Do both, if it'll make you feel better." Mara cleared her throat loudly from tactical. "Captain, we're not safe yet. Those beacons are still on the hull. Once we drop out of hyperspace, they could recalibrate and broadcast again. Then we make a stop," Ryan said. "Callisto asteroid belt. There's someone there who owes me a favor." "A favor big enough to hide us from half the galaxy?" Mara asked. Ryan's jaw tightened. "It'll have to be." As the crew dispersed, Ryan caught Kiona's arm, gently pulling her aside. "You need rest," he said softly. "So do you," she countered. "Later." His hand lingered at her waist, a heartbeat longer than necessary. For now, Ryan Stone could only think of one thing. He'd crossed a line for her. And for the first time in years, he didn't care about the consequences. A new future. The Nomad emerged from hyperspace with a soft lurch, the stars snapping back into sharp pinpricks of light. The Callisto asteroid belt loomed ahead, a field of tumbling rock and ice lit by the cold blue glow of a dying sun. Ryan stood on the bridge, arms folded, his jaw set in a hard line. Behind him, the crew worked in silence. The events at Helio Station still clung to them like a second skin, the bounty hunters. The narrow escape, the impossible odds. "We're in position," Dex said, his cybernetic eye flickering. "No pursuit on sensors yet. But don't get comfortable. If Thu recalibrated those beacons, they'll find us again soon." "Cord prep the EVA suits," Ryan ordered. "We're getting those trackers off the hull before they can light us up again." The Braxian engineer's deep voice rumbled over the comms. "Aye, Captain. But it's going to be tricky work out there. Radiation levels are spiking." "We don't have a choice," Ryan replied. Kiona's voice broke the heavy quiet. "Let me go out there." Every head on the bridge turned toward her. Umara said sharply, "You're not even crew. You think we're going to trust you with—" "Yes," Ryan cut her off. His eyes met Kiona's across the room. "She's got the best technical hands on this ship, and the stakes are too high for ego right now." Kiona didn't flinch under the weight of their stares. "Verdante proprioception gives me an advantage in delicate operations," she said evenly. "If the radiation causes micro-fluctuations in the hull, I'll feel them before anyone else." Ryan nodded once. "Cord, get her prepped. I'll be going out with her." 10 minutes later, Ryan and Kiona floated in the cold void, tethered to the Nomad by slender safety lines. The EVA suits' heads-up displays glowed faintly in their helmets as they drifted across the pitted hull, hunting for the Krell tracking beacons. "There," Kiona said, pointing toward a jagged seam near the port thruster. "Second beacon. I can feel the vibration it's causing through the hull plates." Ryan maneuvered closer, bracing himself against the ship's surface as he worked to pry the device loose. Kiona's voice came softly over the comms. "You're good at this." "Old habit," Ryan replied, his breath fogging the inside of his helmet. "Years of patchwork repairs on ships that should have been scrapped." "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "This life, sometimes." His hands paused briefly, but not lately. The beacon came free with a sharp click, tumbling away into the void. Ryan sent it spinning toward a nearby asteroid, where it shattered into fragments on impact. "That's 2 down," Cord's voice crackled over the comms. One more to go. I see it, Kiona said, starboard side. They made their way along the ship's curve, the endless black of space pressing in from all sides. You didn't answer my question, Kiona said after a long silence. Ryan frowned. Which one? Do you regret saving me? He hesitated, then shook his head. Not even for a second. The last beacon clung stubbornly to the hull. Kiona reached for it, her slender fingers working with deft precision. Ryan hovered nearby, his hand on his blaster. Even out here, he didn't trust the universe not to throw more trouble their way. You're glowing again, he murmured. I know. Is that from fear or something else? Her lips curved faintly inside her helmet. You tell me, Captain. A warning tone blared in their suits. Captain Dex's voice snapped. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. They found us. How many? Ryan demanded. 4, no 5, all bounty hunters. Damn it, Ryan growled. Get back inside, Mara barked over the comms. We'll try to hold them off as long as we can. Ryan locked eyes with Kiona through their visors. Get that beacon off now. I'm trying, she said through gritted teeth. The Nomad shuddered under weapons fire vibrations rippling through the hull. Shields down to 60%, Dex reported. We can't hold this position. Got it, Kiona shouted. The beacon popped free and she flung it away with a sharp flick. Go, Ryan barked. They kicked off the hull jets, firing as they hurtled back toward the airlock. Plasma fire streaked past them, lighting up the void like a violent sunrise. The second they were inside, Ryan slammed his fist on the comm panel. Cord punch it, full burn. The Nomad's engines roared to life, propelling them forward with bone-jarring force. On the bridge, Mara's fingers danced over the weapons console. 2 ships down, she shouted. But there's too many of them. Ryan, we just need a path, Ryan said grimly. Keep firing. Kiona burst onto the bridge, pulling off her helmet as her bioluminescence flared with adrenaline. Let me help, she said. Ryan's eyes flicked to her. Engineering. Verdante systems are designed for precision navigation. I can guide us through the asteroid field. Do it. The Nomad plunged into the dense cluster of rocks and ice. Pursuit ships followed, their weapons blazing. Port thrusters at 30%, Cord warned. We'll never outmaneuver them like this. Yes, we will, Kiona said, her fingers flying over the controls. Trust me. The ship weaved between tumbling boulders, darting through gaps too small for the larger hunter ships to follow. One slammed into an asteroid and exploded in a brilliant fireball. 3 left, Mara said. Ryan glanced at Kiona. Her ice-blue eyes were locked on the screens, her glow pulsing like a heartbeat. You're insane, he murmured. So are you, she replied without looking up. The Nomad emerged from the belt just as Cord shouted, hyperdrive charged. Do it, Ryan ordered. The stars stretched into long streaks of light as the Nomad leapt into hyperspace, leaving the remaining bounty hunters behind. Silence fell on the bridge. The crew exhaled as one, the weight of survival sinking in. Ryan turned to Kiona, his hand brushing her arm. You saved us again, he said quietly. She smiled faintly. It's becoming a bad habit, isn't it? Or a good one? 3 days later, the Nomad drifted in orbit around a small, uninhabited moon. On the observation deck, the crew gathered in a loose circle. At the center stood Ryan and Kiona facing one another. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin glowed brighter than they ever had, pulsing like living constellations. Cord, massive and solemn, spoke in his deep Braxian voice. By the old codes of the stars and the new bonds forged in fire, I recognize this pairing. Ryan's voice was low but steady. You were never mine to save Kiona. You were always your own. I'm just grateful you chose to stay. Her ice-blue eyes glistened. Among my people, we say bioluminescence reflects the soul, and mine shines because of you. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the crew erupted in applause, though Mara still muttered under her breath, I'll never get used to this. Dex's holographic eye flickered. Sentimental nonsense, but effective for morale. The Nomad's engines flared to life. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited, dangerous, infinite, and full of possibilities. Ryan's hand found Kiona's as the ship turned toward the stars. "Ready for the next fight?" she asked softly. "Always," he said with a grin. And together they soared into the unknown,